Hey everyone, this is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row. Thanks so much for listening to the following broadcast, courtesy of Public House Media.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay.
And this is Elizabeth,
co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello and welcome to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. My name is Brice Burge.
And I'm Ivan Sanchez Carrasco. Today we're going to talk about the Asian Cup. We're going to talk about Theirry Henry and Monaco. And then we're going to finish off with the U.S. men's and women's national team, Brice.
Your Soccer Passport is sponsored by Squadcast. As podcasters that deal with analysts from around the world, being able to record remotely is key. Current industry standards rely heavily on internet connection, but Squadcast changes that with a simple browser-based tool that requires no additional software to install. The audio is recorded locally as high-quality WAV files, then uploaded to the host computer. To get started with your remote podcasting recording experience, to see how it all works, go to squadcast.fm for your 14-day free trial. Let's head to Monaco, where Theirry Henry is no longer the manager of that team. He was fired just 104 days into leading the team with not a lot of success to show for it. The team is still in 19th place. It's been just all over the place. Tell us a little bit about this situation.
Well, yeah, you had Theirry Henry, a former youth product of Monaco, coming in after Leonardo Jardim got off to a bad start this year for Monaco. And all the stories coming out from Monaco is just that Theirry Henry, his time there, really struggled, number one, tactically to have an identity with the team and the style in which they played, and number two, kind of struggled to connect with the players in a disciplinarian manner too, kind of the two things you need to be a successful head coach. And he struggled there, and kind of the final straw happened last week when he wanted to send 6 players to play with the reserve teams, and then the players got together and went to the management and essentially asked for the firing of Henry, and Monaco kind of agreed, and then they rehired Leonardo Jardim, the guy who got fired for Henry. And that's kind of the main thing. Those have been kind of the main things that I think they only won 2 games under him. They had a big matchup against one of the teams they're battling relegation for, and they lost that. And they're 3 points behind. They're second to last right now in the league. They're 3 points behind 2 teams with 18 points. And it was a bad time. This is Henry's first time as a head coach. He was the assistant for Belgium for 4 years, and it just kind of shows how hard it is to be a top level head coach. Even if you were a world class player, it's hard. Just because you're great at one thing doesn't mean you're going to be great at the other.
You know what? I can dig that, but my thing though is that it seems like Henry didn't really understand what it took to be a head coach. And that comes from some of the reports when talking about just kind of, I think he went after his goalie for not pushing his chair in properly at a press conference. The players tried to make it work with him, but they weren't necessarily against Jardim to begin with. So they weren't necessarily behind the new guy because they weren't officially out from the old guy. I think that's one of the reasons why they brought Jardim back, is because there's only going to be a certain amount of people that will be able to kind of coach that locker room and bring them the confidence that they had the entire time. But it's not like Monaco didn't try to give him everything that he wanted. It's not like Henry was just completely left hanging out in the wind because of bad ownership or bad management or bad player decisions. Henry got what he wanted for the most part, including some really expensive transfers and where he wanted players to be, and he still wasn't able to get it done. And for me, when I see that show, the biggest example that I could kind of think of is Chip Kelly in the NFL. Chip Kelly, the GM, got Chip Kelly, the coach, fired in Philadelphia. And so it's a scenario where if you're not going to be there in all aspects of the job, then even with a decent situation that you had in Monaco, it may not be the best situation because Monaco's kind of been up and down. They've never really kind of been to this level before. They reached a lot of success in the last couple of years, even playing the Champions League, and now they're just off to a terrible start that got compounded underneath this time underneath Henry, and this is a franchise that is not able to get going again.
Yeah, and last couple of years they've been a selling club because they've produced so many great players. And like you mentioned, they were in the Champions League semifinals a couple of years ago, I believe, 2017. And I think they sold too many players in a way, and the next players they had to replace them weren't up to that level. And that tends to happen sometimes with these selling clubs, these not top level clubs, but kind of mid level clubs, when you have a generation of players who are special, and then you sell them off to these bigger clubs, the next generation of players, if they're not at that same level, and you have that same structure and mentality, that's where the struggle happens. So it's not all Henry. Definitely a lot of it has to do with Monaco as well. But good on Monaco for saying, you know what, we messed up by firing Jardine and bringing Henry, and then they changed it as quickly as possible too. So it'll be interesting what they do in the relegation battle the rest of the year. And it'll be interesting to see how Henry learns from this, and if he gets another coaching job, if he takes a step back and goes through more clinics and learns probably in an assistant manner to what it takes to be a club coach too, and being there day in and day out and how to interact with players now too. I think that'd be interesting to see what he does in that regard in the future.
And you see that in all sports where you have some coaches that are just meant to be a coordinator, just meant to be an assistant coach, meant to be a recruiter, meant to be a youth developer. You have some people that are just made for certain roles and they're not meant to be a head coach. They just don't have what it takes. And, as you described, it'll be interesting to see how Henry develops and when his next chance will be, because I think he kind of screwed this up. Again, I'll use another American sports comparison. Jason Kidd with the Milwaukee Bucks, I think, is a perfect example. You get that player mentality in there, and then you're fighting with your players because you think that you can be a player too and a coach and expect that separation. It just doesn't happen. So, an older, a wiser, a more separated from the pitch type Henry may be a better coach down the line, and we'll see how that goes. Let's switch up here in this opening segment on Your Soccer Passport. Brice Bergevin, Sanchez Carrasco here on a Public House Media, sponsored by Squadcast.fm. The Asian Cup is in the middle of their semifinals. The second semifinal will be played after recording, just moments after we release the episode. A very interesting setup in the knockout rounds at this point, with one semifinal of teams that we expected to be there and one semifinal of teams that we did not expect to be there. The one that was already played was Japan, a 3-0 victory over Iran. Very surprising because Japan was just barely able to squeak out a quarterfinal victory against Vietnam while Iran trounced China. So that, I know last week we had talked about Iran being our favorite among both of us. On the other side, with the game yet to be played, is Qatar, who upset South Korea 1-0, and the United Arab Emirates, who upset Australia by the same score, though you could say it was probably less of an upset just because Australia struggled this entire tournament, not able to score a goal in the majority of their games. Major offensive problems for the Socceroos there. Relying on a lot of penalty kicks and a lot of tiebreaker scenarios to even get out of their group. So UAE moves on, and they'll play Qatar this morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 6 a.m. Pacific. and they'll. Japan's waiting for him in the finals. So with this scenario, let's kind of go over some of the I mentioned a couple of them. What were some of the storylines that kind of stuck out to you so far in this Asian Cup?
I think it was that semifinal between Japan and Iran. I think both of us liked Iran. They had scored 12 goals this tournament. They hadn't allowed any, and Japan kind of were skating by, winning all their games by 1 goal. And in the semifinals, they kind of just they frustrated Iran, and they kind of had Iran play into what Japan wanted to do. They were very patient with the ball, and when they had the ball, and once Iran kind of got down a goal, you could see that it was exactly what Japan wanted. And we saw in the World Cup a little bit too. Iran struggles more when they're behind, when they're kind of pushed, and when they have to play a little more attacking and kind of get out of their defensive shell. And Japan kind of used that to their advantage, attacking that right-hand side where they were able to get the goals. And I was impressed by Japan in that regard because I thought Iran were kind of the favorites, and I think we gave them the double stink streak on us by both of us choosing them. And then and then on the semifinal, you have Qatar, who are trying to make a good paper, hosting the World Cup in a couple of years, and the host UAE. And any team that wins that game, Japan's going to be the favorite for it. But yeah, kind of how bad Australia's been. Also, this tournament was also a little bit of a surprise for me too. And Korea getting upset, we're all that. But yeah, Japan, the old guard, not willing to give up one of the reigns as one of the best teams in Asia. So good for them.
And you talked about it. You hit it right on the head there about Japan playing on the frustrations of the other team, because when they are a good squad, but they don't have necessarily the star power that other teams have. Osaka not only got a goal to draw the first blood in the 56th minute, but he also got a penalty goal in the 67th minute, and then Haraguchi scored in stoppage time, a meaningless goal on a counterattack. It's just because there still was more shots by Iran, but more on target for Japan, making all their shots count pretty much. So it's just the way that Japan handled themselves looked really well. I think when they go up against Qatar or UAE in the next round, it's going to be interesting. I mean, they're obviously going to be the favorites to a point. UAE is now having to rely on giving away free tickets to fans just to make sure that they do have that advantage over Qatar. Two programs that are definitely reveling in the fact that they've made it to the semifinal, and a lot emotionally on the line for both countries. So while that's up there, I got to ask, who do you think is going to win it all, and does it really matter who wins the semifinal?
Yeah, I think it matters because you have UAE, because they're both building on something. You have UAE who's hosting it, so to host a final is big, and you have Qatar who aren't going to play a lot of competitive matches because they're going to host the World Cup. So these are going to be one of their most important matches that they're going to play in the next 3 years leading up to that World Cup. But I'm going to go with Japan. This is a Japan team who had a lot of the old generation retire after the World Cup, and this is kind of a new generation. And they're going through the growing pains of being an inexperienced national team as they've kind of skated by this tournament and at times have shown ups and downs. But with that, I'm gonna keep going with Japan. I'm gonna switch my lines to them. So we'll go with Japan.
All right.
Which means Qatar and UAE are probably gonna win.
You say that, but I'm not gonna pick Japan just on that aspect. I mean, just because when I look at this and I look at what UAE has done, they won their group. UAE has surprised a lot of people. UAE has also shown that they have some really good opportunities to move forward with it. And so, when you look at Matar, when you look at Mahmoud, there's a lot of people there that still have the ability to create some opportunities. And I just feel like that emotional run for either team, especially if this game's close, especially if it goes into extra time, if it goes into penalty kicks, just whatever team that can make that move on, as long as it's not like one-sided either way. I think that team will eventually win it. I think they'll ride the momentum wave over Japan, and I do think it's going to be UAE running it the entire way through. We're going to take a break.
Feels good to not agree again.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing to do. So it's better radio that way. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we will have some stuff on the U.S. men's and women's national teams as they go through some very important friendlies. One, because it's the new dawn of a new coach, and one, because they are preparing to retain their title up at the World Cup this year. You're listening to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media, sponsored by Squadcast.fm.
This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, The Cheap Seats, where we talk about sports from the fans' perspective. A new show comes out every Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Cheap Seats. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome back to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media, sponsored by Squadcast.fm. Just want to remind you that there's been some random sales going on in the wonderful TeePublic shop. That's for all of the Public House Media shows, whether it's our show or somebody else. You're welcome to go in and check out the T-shirts, mugs, wall art, and more, all available in the TeePublic shop. Visit teepublic.com/pubhousemedia. That's teepublic.com. All right, let's talk about the national teams, the United States, both with some important friendlies. We'll start with the women's first, ladies first in this show. They defeated Spain 1-0. Surprisingly or not surprisingly, the first ever matchup between the two nations. The U.S. coming away with the 1-0 win, courtesy of Kristen Press from Rose Lavelle in the 54th minute. Important game to get back on track after the rough loss to the French earlier this year, making sure that there's no such thing as a losing streak for the women's national team. Why was this such a big win?
I think you kind of hit on the head. They were really outplayed by France in the friendly last week. So it's kind of a big game for them to, like you said, get on track and kind of build momentum towards the summer and towards their next month when they play the women's cup with Japan, England, and Brazil. And it was good for them because I think both teams actually got a lot out of this game, U.S. and Spain. I think for U.S., the win and play more of their style and getting used to the environment that they're going to face in Europe was really important for them. I think they showed that they're still a cut above Spain when it comes to just the little finer details of what separates a world-class team to a good team. But I think for Spain, they're going to take a lot of positives out of this.
I agree.
You and I have both mentioned how we've been impressed with their youth teams. Yeah, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I mean, kind of going into what I was thinking on too is that, Spain has really shown that they are an up-and-coming program that could potentially upseat an older program that's aging out, maybe like a Japan or a Canada, that has shown that they are definitely developing the youth programs, and they've brought home the hardware in these U18, U16 world tournaments. And so eventually these players are going to get older, and they're going to be becoming these world-class teams. Even then, they have to learn how to play on that stage. You can take a whole bunch of great collegiate players and then stick them together in a pro roster, and they don't necessarily, come together right away. So I think that kind of showed here with this game in Spain. Playing in Alicante, this was a chance for Spain to learn a ton, and they got it. they definitely got it. The individual abilities to kind of go back there and say, like, this worked, this didn't, I think is even a bigger opportunity to learn for the Spanish team compared to systems and how they work together. Just because when you're dealing with that heads-up play, there's a lot of great opportunities there for Spain. So while I'm glad that the U.S. won this game, got back on track, I think Spain got more out of it, and that does concern me just a touch, because when you deal with teams that could be a heartbreaker at a level like the World Cup coming up, I think that just a 1-0 result is something that could potentially cause some problems for the United States, because now you've got a Spanish team that says, hey, we only lost 1-0. Hey, they brought back a whole bunch of their players. Because, like some of the people that were out injured against France were in there this time around, like Rapinoe, who got, played the first half, that kind of stuff. So to go up against these guys and get that experience, I think is something that you can't sleep on the Spanish about. And so nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. You're hearing it here on the show that you better expect Spanish everything when it comes to France this upcoming summer.
Yeah, and you make a good point about that. And the way the bracket's set up, if Spain finishes second with the group with Germany and South Africa and China, and USA finishes first, they are locked in to play each other in round of 16. And I think this result is big. It's big for Spain in that regard, because I don't think they're not gonna be intimidated by this U.S. team. I don't think. And besides only losing 1-0, they were able to implement their style of play for a large part of the game, and the way they move the ball and the way they press as well. So I think you and I have both mentioned them on their youth system, and I think when we talked about the draw, we both talked about how impressed we were with Spain. And I'm kind of jumping on early on that bandwagon too for this summer, because I've just been really impressed with what I've seen from all these different levels and the way they've kind of implemented an ideal style of play all the way through the youth, all the way from their youth systems, all the way to the senior team. There's an identity to what they want to do with the soccer ball, something that's kind of the last 10 years was implemented with their men's team, and you see it now in the women's team. So that's a team to keep our eye on for the summer. Spain, like you said, you heard it here first. I'm about it.
Let's switch over to the men's side. Men's team in a little less important of a matchup going up against Panama. United States wins 3-0. A whole bunch of young guys getting important time. Milovic goes and scores the first goal for the United States at the 40th minute. Zimmerman and Christian Ramirez gets their first goals as well in the 80th and 89th minute, respectively. United States was in control this entire time, really just kind of putting good opportunities on target. They beat the Panamanian goaltender considerably and just weren't able to get the shots accurate enough either. So this game could have been a lot worse than what it was. But that being said, it's tough because this is also the very first opportunity we've had a chance to see Greg Berhalter out there on the pitch leading this American team. And now we get to see him actually out there and managing this squad with a whole bunch of young faces. And I don't know what the bigger storyline is here, because everything says that the common sense is that this is important because of Greg Berhalter, but you had pretty much all your youngest guys out there that have gotten, their first caps, their first opportunities to play for the team, first goals. It's a completely different scenario. So what was more important in this game? Is it common thought process of Berhalter's first game, or is it the youth development?
I think I'm gonna go with Greg Berhalter, because he's had a month to work with them. They've been in the January camp in Carson all month long. So I think what I liked from this match, even though it's hard to take a lot from especially like these type of friendlies that aren't on FIFA dates where you can't bring your best players in, is that after a month working with them, there's there was at least an idea of what they wanted to do. There was at least, it seemed like they had a purpose with their attack, something that I think was struggling under Bruce Arena. You saw them kind of be more aggressive, and the wingers push more forward to allow more space for these outside backs. And that was on purpose. So I think that's the good thing about it. I think, not to be pessimistic or anything of that manner, but you're not going to, the thing with Greg Berhalter and something of that manner is usually you're not going to have a whole month with the national team players to kind of implement that system of what he wants to do. And most of the players that were on this roster, you don't see them making a direct impact this summer at the Gold Cup, which is going to be the first important tournament for him, just because a lot of the U.S. best players are overseas in Germany or are in Europe. So I think from that regard, getting the victory and getting off to a right foot is important, and seeing that these young guys, he was able to implement his idea with these young guys is also important. The result isn't as important, but just to see the positivity of it and being able to beat a team you were supposed to is always good as well. The Costa Rica game will be a little more interesting just because of Matosa's style of play. The Costa Rican coach is also aggressive, so I think that'll be good. And also a side note, the crowd yesterday was so small. I think they said the final report was a little over 9,000 people over in Phoenix. And yeah, they should have moved that game. They should have played the game in smaller arena, not the football stadium. But those are kind of my thoughts from the game overall.
Those contracts are locked in way ahead of time, and I think Phoenix is one of the locations for the Gold Cup too. So they Glendale, same difference there. And so with it being in Glendale, that's important too, because you have to have the ability for the venue to practice for the Gold Cup. And so I don't necessarily have a problem with leaving it there. That said, this wasn't as important of a game, but you were kind of hoping that you could get more people there to care, specifically because it was Berhalter's first game, and they didn't have it. I did notice that Zardes looked amazingly comfortable out there. Just because of his previous experience with Berhalter as a manager with the Crew. A lot of the things that you brought up that they were able to do to start building their identity, I thought was great, because that was the biggest thing that we had talked about with Saracen as the interim manager, is like he didn't know what to do. He was never considered for that role. So it was like, well, I can't build towards any kind of, playing motif or style. I'm just here to basically groom younger players on an international stage. And so he's trying to do individual things. We weren't able to see systems, and now you're able to see the systems with some of those youth players again, which was a completely different group of youth players pretty much than what was underneath Saracen. So I thought that aspect was interesting. But going in and having a 3-0 result against somebody that beat you in the Hex, somebody that beat you for a World Cup berth, somebody that you may see when it comes to the Gold Cup this summer, because we still don't know who's going to finish up the rest of the bracket in the Gold Cup this year. The local qualifiers are still wrapping up. I think some of them have qualified, but I haven't taken a look at CONCACAF Nations League qualifying in a bit. So I'll have to take a look at that a little bit here. Maybe that's a topic for next week. But the whole scenario here is interesting for the United States men's national team, and this is definitely the first step moving forward underneath the Berhalter era.
Yeah, quick question for you. What do you think about Bradley still being involved?
Michael Bradley?
Yeah, because he played, but he wasn't the captain. I think he brought him in for this January camp just so there can be some experience, some leadership of some sort, and just for there to be someone these younger guys can kind of look up to in a way. But the fact that he was involved, I thought was good.
Yeah, I think so too. There's only so many players that you can have, and having Zardes up front, and they had a couple of guys on the defensive side too. So Bradley's midfielder role, I think, kind of did that, because you had leadership at really all three major positions outside of the goalkeeper. So that ability to kind of have a camp that is organized in that way allows for either the changing of the guard or, so to say, a little bit easier than it would be to just go straight in on it and have these guys just kind of, hanging in the wind and not having that direction, or more importantly, when you're out on the pitch, that redirection and that ability to refocus in on what's being taught and what's being implemented. I think it was wise.
Yeah, I agree.
What is your shout out for this week?
It's an event, the Australian Open, tennis. I loved watching the Australian Open. It just wrapped up. Both the women's and the guys. I would stay up very late to watch them. I was just thoroughly enjoyed. Djokovic is a absolute animal from Serbia. Osaka was fantastic from Japan on the women's side, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching the tournament. So yeah, shout out to the Australian Open.
You did a great job of commentary on that, as well as your soccer commentary on your Twitter profile. Just going to give a quick shout out to those before we leave. Yours is Ivan Sanchez C90. Mine is at that Brice Burge, Brice with an I. So you're welcome to follow us on there. Remember to listen to Your Soccer Passport, as well as everything else from Public House Media on Spotify, iTunes, Spreaker, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found. Until next time, I'm Brice Burge.
I'm Ivan Sanchez Carrasco.
You've just listened to Your Soccer Passport on Public House Media, sponsored by Squadcast.fm.